A soldier gets hit by a weapon. That's the only fact that matters right now. Not which war, not which weapon, not which side he's on. Just a soldier, a wound, and a question. Does he live? The answer has changed more dramatically over the course of human history than almost any other number we track. And the thing that changed it is not what most people expect. It wasn't stronger armor. It wasn't better weapons on the other side. It wasn't courage, training, or tactics. It was money, specifically how much each era was willing to spend on keeping its soldiers alive. We're going to go through 6 major eras of warfare. We're going to look at what it costs to equip one soldier in each era. And we're going to track one number across all of them. What percentage of wounded soldiers actually survived their wounds? That number starts very low. It ends somewhere that will surprise you. Stay until the end. That's when we get to the price. And the number is not what you expect. Let's start with ancient Rome. The Roman legionary earned 225 denarii a year. In today's purchasing power, somewhere between $15,000 and $23,000. He didn't keep most of it. About 2/3 was automatically deducted for food, clothing, and equipment. His armor, the lorica segmentata, was state property. The soldier didn't own it. The full kit of a Roman legionary in today's money, roughly $1,000 to $3,000. That was a significant investment for the ancient world, and Rome made it deliberately. Roman commanders understood something fundamental. Better armor meant fewer deaths. Fewer deaths meant a stronger army next season. Protection was not generosity, it was economics. Now here is the number that matters. Of all soldiers who received a wound in ancient battle, roughly 90% died within days or weeks. Not from the wound itself in most cases, from what came after. A scratch that would be cleaned and forgotten today was a death sentence in the ancient world. Infection set in. Fever followed. The wound that looked survivable on the battlefield killed the soldier in camp 3 days later. This is what the Second Punic Wars showed us. The wars between Rome and Carthage. At the Battle of Cannae in 216 BC, one of the most studied military disasters in history, Hannibal surrounded a Roman force of approximately 80,000 men. Roman casualties, somewhere between 47,000 and 70,000, in a single afternoon. On the winning side, typical losses in a decisive Roman victory ran between 6 and 30%. On the losing side, when an army was surrounded, losses could reach 80 to 88%. What killed them? In battle, weapons, formation collapse, cavalry pursuit. In the days after, infection, every time. The ancient wound survival rate, approximately 10% long-term. 9 out of 10 wounded soldiers died. The Roman army built field hospitals, the valetudinarium, permanent stone medical facilities inside military camps, dedicated medical staff, surgical instruments. They were trying, but they didn't know what infection was, and not knowing was fatal. Now here is the first surprise of this video. In most medieval battles, casualties were lower than you probably think. Not zero, not comfortable, but as a general rule, less than 10 to 15% of an engaged force. The Battle of Agincourt, one of the most famous medieval battles in history, saw English losses of around 16 to 17% over the entire campaign. That was considered unusually high for the time. Why so low? 2 reasons. Neither one is the armor. First, economics. A living knight was worth real money. A full-plate armor suit from the 15th century, somewhere between $100,000 and $500,000 today. Some ceremonial armors reached $3.5 million, but the knight's value wasn't in his equipment, it was in his ransom. Capture a knight, and you could demand the income of an entire estate to release him. Capture a high nobleman, and you might demand enough to fund a small war. So when a knight went down in battle, the men around him didn't finish him, they took him prisoner. The incentive to kill the most expensive soldiers on the field was almost zero, which is why most of them survived. Second reason, disease killed everyone else first. Before any medieval army reached a significant battle, dysentery, typhus, and respiratory illness had already thinned it. More soldiers died from water they drank from the wrong stream than from any enemy weapon. The ordinary foot soldier had none of the knight's protections. His kit, a spear, a padded jacket, maybe a simple helmet, cost perhaps $100 to $500. Ransom value, 0. If his side lost, he ran, and cavalry cut down the ones who couldn't run fast enough. Wound mortality in medieval infantry combat. Estimates range from 30 to 50% dying of their wounds. Better than the ancient world. Worse than almost everything that would come later. Medieval summary. Knights. Low battle deaths, primarily because they weren't killed. They were sold. Infantry. Higher mortality. Same ancient killers. Infection, disease, cavalry pursuit. The armor was impressive. The medicine was identical to ancient Rome. Then came the musket, and it made $500,000 worth of plate armor completely useless overnight. A musket ball didn't bounce off iron plate, it went through it. By the Napoleonic era, soldiers had stopped wearing body armor entirely. Not because it was abolished, because it stopped working. A Napoleonic infantry soldier's full kit, musket, uniform, cartridge box, bayonet, cost roughly $200 to $500 in today's terms. The cheapest any major army had ever equipped its soldiers, and the results showed it. In the Napoleonic campaigns, disease killed 2 to 4 times as many soldiers as combat did. In the American Civil War, fought with rifles, not muskets, and therefore much more lethal at range, approximately 30% of adult men in the Confederacy died during the war. Of those, disease still accounted for roughly twice the combat deaths. In the Spanish-American War of 1898, 9 deaths from disease for every 1 death in combat. Wound mortality in this era, roughly 42% of wounded soldiers died, better than the ancient world. But still, nearly half of every wounded man didn't survive his wound. The same problem. 2,000 years later, the musket was new, the infection was not. Something had to break. By the way, if you're finding this interesting, most people watching right now aren't subscribed. Takes 1 second, helps a lot. Now back to it. And then it got worse before it got better. World War I is the answer to a question nobody asks. Which era of warfare was the worst combination of firepower and tactics? Machine guns had existed since the 1860s. By 1914, every major army had them. A single Maxim gun could fire 400 to 600 rounds per minute. It covered entire fields of advance. The generals of 1914 knew this. They had reports from the Russo-Japanese War of 1904 to 1905, where machine guns had destroyed infantry attacks. They ordered the attacks anyway. On the first day of the Battle of the Somme, July 1st, 1916, the British Army suffered 57,470 casualties, 19,240 men killed in 1 day, most of them in the first hour. The equipment cost of a World War I soldier, roughly $200 to $500. A steel helmet, a rifle, a uniform, no body armor, no protection against artillery or gas. Wound mortality rate in World War I, approximately 40 to 42%. Nearly identical to the gunpowder era 2 centuries earlier. In the American forces alone, 63,000 deaths from disease compared to 51,000 in combat, largely because of the Spanish flu of 1918. The weapons had industrialized. The medicine had not kept pace. The tactics belonged to a previous century. World War II was the turning point. Not in the weapons, those became more powerful. Not in the armor, the basic American soldier still wore minimal protection. The turning point was medicine. Sulfonamide antibacterial drugs had been developed in the 1930s. Penicillin reached Allied forces in significant quantities by 1943. For the first time in the history of warfare, a soldier who survived the immediate wound had a genuine chance of surviving the infection. The cost to equip an American soldier in World War II, $170. A helmet, a uniform, a rifle, basic medical supplies, $170. And what did that get? Wound mortality in World War II, approximately 20 to 25%, down from 42% in the previous era. For the first time, disease accounted for less than 10% of total American military deaths, compared to parity or worse in every previous conflict. The equipment was not significantly better than World War I. The armor was not meaningfully improved. The medicine changed everything. Vietnam is where individual soldier equipment began to seriously increase. Cost to equip an American soldier in Vietnam, $1,112. 6.5 times more than World War II. What did that buy? A better helmet, improved jungle boots, and, critically, the M1952A fragmentation vest. The first effective soft body armor widely issued to infantry. It didn't stop rifle bullets, but it stopped fragments, the metal pieces that sprayed outward from artillery shells and mortar rounds. Artillery fragments caused the majority of wounds in Vietnam, not bullets. The vest was designed for the actual threat. Wound mortality in Vietnam, 22%. Down from 40% in World War I, down from 25% in World War II. The helicopter medevac changed the equation further. A wounded soldier no longer waited for a field hospital. The hospital came to him, often within minutes of injury. Equipment cost up 560% from World War II. Wound mortality down by more than half compared to World War I. The pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. Every dollar spent on protection and medicine produced a measurable improvement in survival. Which brings us to the most recent data point. An American soldier deployed to Iraq or Afghanistan carries approximately 80 individual items weighing around 34 kilograms. Cost to equip that soldier, $17,472. 100 times more than World War II, 15 times more than Vietnam. What does $17,472 buy? An enhanced combat helmet rated to stop rifle rounds, over $1,000 on its own. Ceramic plate body armor that stops high-velocity rifle bullets. Fire-resistant gloves and uniform. Night vision equipment. Thermal optics. Radio communications. A trauma kit sophisticated enough to treat wounds that would have been fatal in previous wars. The main threat in Iraq was not rifles. Improvised explosive devices, roadside bombs, accounted for more than 60% of all combat casualties. No body armor was designed to stop a bomb. And yet, wound mortality for American soldiers in Iraq, 9.7%. The lowest ever recorded for any military force in history. 1 in 10 wounded soldiers died. The other 9 survived. Because the armor stopped the fragments the bomb threw outward. Because the medevac arrived in minutes. Because forward surgical teams had supplies and training that didn't exist a generation ago. Because every piece of the system, equipment, medicine, evacuation, surgery, had been improving simultaneously for decades. The cost went from $170 in World War II to $17,472 in Iraq, a 10,000% increase. The wound survival rate went from 75% to 90.3%. Here's what the numbers actually show. Ancient Rome, kit cost, around $2,000. Wound survival rate, roughly 10%. The medieval knight, kit cost, up to $300,000. Wound survival rate, roughly 85%, but not because of the armor. Medieval infantry, kit cost, $100 to $500. Wound survival rate, roughly 50 to 65%. The gunpowder era, kit cost, $200 to $500. Wound survival rate, roughly 58%. World War I, kit cost, roughly $300. Wound survival rate, approximately 58 to 60%. World War II, kit cost, $170. Wound survival rate, approximately 75 to 80%. Vietnam. Kit cost, $1,100. Wound survival rate, approximately 78%. Iraq and Afghanistan. Kit cost, over $17,000. Wound survival rate, 90.3%. The medieval knight is the anomaly. $500,000 of equipment, high survival, but not because of the armor. Because the other side wanted him alive for ransom. Everything else follows one pattern: more investment, better survival, every time. The question every government faces is how much a soldier's life is worth. The answer has always been exactly what they were willing to pay. When you strip away the strategy, the ideology, and the politics, military history looks like a budget. A decision made before the war started by people who would never be in the battle about how much they were willing to spend on the men who would. The Roman soldier who died from an infected wound 3 days after surviving the battlefield wasn't defeated by the enemy. He was defeated by the limits of what his era knew and what it was willing to spend. The British soldier who walked into machine gun fire on the Somme wasn't defeated by German engineering. He was defeated by generals who equipped him for the wrong century. The soldier in Iraq who stepped on a bomb and survived because someone, decades earlier, decided body armor research was worth funding. Survived because someone decided medevac helicopters were worth the cost. Survived because penicillin happened and trauma surgery happened, and someone decided those things belonged in a combat zone. The most survivable conflict in military history is not a coincidence. It is a budget line. Was it worth it? Drop your answer below. And if you want more stories where history gets a price tag, subscribe to HistoryBilled. Every war has a price tag. This one was paid in research, training, and equipment. And for the first time in history, most of the soldiers came home.